In later years, when the death of Flamestrike was a legend, there were those who claimed to have heard a dragon's voice fade away like smoke on an autumn wind, whispering, "My children." Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West to the last Dragon Month video that we have planned for you. Today, we're going to be talking about a dragon I always had a soft spot for since I was 13 years old. And I remember being filled with pity for Matafleur. I don't know any other way of pronouncing it. Described as a dragon who is over 100 feet in length, with skin that was once brilliant red but had become mottled and gray. She had large scars running down her sides, which are signs and proof positive of the wars she fought in once upon a time. What's more is that Matafleur, one of her eyes is clouded and blind, and her teeth had become yellowed and broken. She was obviously not in great condition at the end of her life. But earlier in her life, during the Third Dragon War, which lasted from about 1020 pre-Cataclysm to 1018 pre-Cataclysm, she was renowned as a fearsome red dragon. She was responsible for securing a great many victories for Tharkas. Matafleur fought in a great many battles from the Third Dragon's War. It was likely prior to the Third War that Matafleur's children were born. These children had obviously grown to full adulthood, and they were slain by the Salamnics in these battles. These losses obviously traumatized Matafleur a great deal, and so she retreated from the world alongside the other dragons when the time came. In Dragons of Autumn Twilight, she appears as essentially a guard. She's not much of a guard, and serves more as a kind of nanny. She is senile and delusional, believing the human children to essentially be her children. And when she sees them in danger to Verminard and the dragon Ember, she bursts out, attacks her fellow Red in what can only be called an insane fury. She's crazy with rage and believes she's reliving the battle where her kids were slain in front of her. She then proceeds to kamikaze Ember, a rather tragic event. And the reason it's so tragic is that Matafleur spends a small portion of Dragons of Autumn Twilight essentially harmless and shrinking away from Wyrmslayer, and she's not really equipped for battle, and she's grown too old. And you can't help but sympathize with her for having buried her children, because as it has been said by a great many people, no parent should ever, under any circumstances, bury their children. Matafleur buried all of hers. I can't help but think that this kind of pushes her into the top 10 most tragic characters of Dragonlance history. There is a lot of pathos in her character, even though she's only around for a short time in the original chronicles. I hope we do see her in Dragons of Deceit, and I really do hope that we see the soft side of this poor, old, decrepit red dragon. And she's proof that the rules are not absolute in Dragonlance. In a previous video, I had commented on how I'd like to see a good red dragon, for example. Obviously, that was a foolish statement, and I forgot about Matafleur. She is not at all evil. There is, I don't think, any real evil in her. There is just a great deal of sorrow and suffering and grief. I think that part of her senility may have been self-inflicted in a way psychologically to cope with the trauma that she endured during the Third Dragon's War. Her protective streak over these children is proof positive of the great writing skills of Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss. I'm not sure what they were thinking when they were writing her, but they wrote one of the most tragic characters in Dragonlance history just in a few pages. This dragon goes on to sacrifice herself very nobly for what she perceives to be her children. And though they were not her biological children, and she was little more than a nanny for them, in a way, I would argue she did kind of become their grandmother. They were her children in a way, because family is more than just blood. I reread the section of Dragons of Autumn Twilight with her in it before this recording, and I was struck by how sorry I felt for her. In a way, Raceland is perhaps the most tragic Dragonlance character in a way, but I couldn't help but feel that her tragedy in some ways overshadows his during the scenes she appears in during. She was not unreasonable. She was just frightened and alone. Ultimately, she's proof that red dragons are redeemable. That said, what happened to her was terrible, but it was war, and I can't help but wonder if maybe her children died against people who were just defending themselves, as the Third Dragon's War was really Tharkas declaring war on all of creation. And it's just another piece of evidence of just how vile Tharkas is, and how her wars even inflict suffering upon those on her side. Without further ado, Matafleur really went down like a champ. Like I said, let's hope we see her in Dragons of Deceit. Don't forget to smash that like button and smash that subscribe button, like your Theros smashing the Dragonlances into shape.